A very good evening to everybody watching. Thank you for joining us tonight on the evening review. My name is Taiwan Jabela. Tonight on the platform, we are joined by Friedel Dausab. He is an activist who has been fighting in the Namibian High Court against the constitutionality of the sodomy law. And on Friday, he was vindicated when the High Court overturned and declared as unconstitutional that law which previously criminalized gay sex between men. I hope you can hear me, Friedel. Thank you very much for making time, and congratulations on a fierce battle that you fought and you have won with the support of many others. If you can give us first a sense of how you felt on Friday when the court ruled in your favor.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the audiences out there. It's an honor for me to be here. A little bit about the case. Um, so on Friday, it was a big day. It was 2 years coming. June 22 was when the journey started, and when we approached the High Court of Namibia with a question of whether the common law offense of sodomy and the statutes around unnatural sexual offenses remain valid and constitutional after independence, remembering that these laws are colonial laws that were perpetrated by the then apartheid South African government, and after independence were never used, could not be used, and they were just remaining on the books as making all gay men criminals on the run and unapprehended felons. And so Friday was really a landmark judgment, not just for LGBT people in Namibia, not just for myself as a litigant in this case, but for our constitutional democracy, as well as for the supremacy of our constitution and the values that portrays and contains for all Namibians.
I mean, one of the things that have been asked is this law has been largely obsolete. In other words, it's not a law that has been enforced in a long time. Nobody in recent history has actually been jailed or even criminally charged for sodomy. People saying essentially that whether it existed on the books or not, there wouldn't have been any real impact on people's lives. Do you agree with that assertion?
Well, I do disagree with the final assertion that it wouldn't, whether it remained, it wouldn't have impact on people's lives, because it had impact on my life as a gay man, and it had a real impact on the lives of any other male-bodied persons who had intimacy with any other male-bodied person. Um, to be clear, Trevor, what this unused laws did, first and foremost, I have been a lifelong campaigner for equal access to HIV prevention, treatment, care, and support. And this is really where my need to courts happened. What I found working in the HIV prevention field was that many gay men and other men who have sex with men who do not identify as gay or but still have sex with other men were unable to clearly communicate to healthcare about their needs, about their healthcare needs, especially about their sexual and reproductive healthcare needs. Secondly, what this law, just remaining on the books, did was it was emboldening homophobes trans folks and other bigoted Namibians to claim that homosexuality was illegal in Namibia, that lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersex people were unwelcome in the country. And we have seen and the absolutely horrible discussion on the anti-gay marriage law that happened. Uh, and if I'm not wrong, one of the opposition leaders, Mr. Swartboy, claimed to be moving this motion because of the sodomy law still being on our books. And so what happened after during that parliamentary debate and afterwards is that we have seen horrible murders of Namibian citizens just because they were lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or intersex. The last one, in effect, where a Namibian citizen thought it would be okay to cut off genitalia from a transgendered woman and place it on the chest. It's just a testimony to the effect of what those laws remaining on our books meant for some of us who identify as gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or intersex.
Yes, and the debate. I mean, there's been a reaction, of course, to the court verdict. The gay community was really, of course, as expected, very elated at that development, but it also blew up platforms like social media where people reflected negatively on the ruling. A lot of people are saying that the whole practice of homosexuality is not African. It's an abomination. As a matter of fact, the court ruled on that aspect of abomination, to saying that it's actually neither here nor there. You are an African man, and you are who you are. How do you pitch yourself? How do you sketch yourself within an African society as a gay man who is being told that what you are is not African?
Thank you so much for that question, Toivo. It was expected, and it does keep coming up. So first and foremost, I think what needs to be clear is that we are dealing with an issue of human sexuality. We know that not all human beings, whether you're African, whether you're Chinese or Asian, whether you're South or Latino, whether you're white or Caucasian, whether you're Middle Eastern and Arabic, we know that homosexuality as a human appears in all societies. There is not a single society where homosexuality does not appear. In fact, we can go even further and see homosexual relationships or homosexuality in itself appears in other species in the animal kingdom. The assertion that we are African, we cannot be homosexual, I find it a vile assertion because what it seems to portray in itself is that Africans are not human because we cannot have this human attribute that all other humans are having. And so I think those who are asserting that homosexuality is un-African should actually answer the question of whether Africans are human. I am human, and I am, in effect, one of the 10%, just to sort of clarify, homosexuality appears around 10% in all human societies. So 1 in 10 people in any given area would identify as homosexual if people were free to actually openly say they were homosexual. And so I think I would put the ball back in the court of those who assert that Africans cannot be so to answer the question of whether Africans are human. I believe Africans are human and equal to any other human, being whether they're white, Asian, Latin American, or First Nations. So I hope my answer is clear on that question.
Yes, it is. And I just wanted to ask also Mr. Dausab, because when you did this case, when you brought it again, when you brought it to court, a lot of rumors and speculation emanated from that, to the extent that I don't know whether it's by pure coincidence that you happen to share the same surname as the Minister of Justice, and she has been perhaps very unfairly caught up in the storm of this court. We just saw now, even today, there's a group that is calling for the resignation of the minister. We've seen her being abused in parliament by members of the Namibia Economic Freedom Fighters, saying she must resign because of your case. In what manner or fashion is Minister Yvonne Dausab related either to yourself or the case that you brought in the High Court?
First of all, the demand for a minister in government who was asked to defend the case, and so in fact, I had brought the case to the Minister of Justice, the Minister of Home Affairs and Immigration, the Minister overseeing the Police and the Defense Force, the Attorney General, and the Prosecutor General. I believe that if the Namibian Economic Freedom Fighters were fair in their demand, they would ask all other ministers to resign. So my short question is that trying to find a conflict as a result of a possible relationship, familial relationship between me and the Minister of Justice is obviously a nonsense. Secondly, the minister in question were among the ministers that were asked in this constitutional challenge and review to hear whether the laws in question were constitutional and valid in the current constitutional dispensation after independence. And so what I would say to those who are trying to find reason in political means or a political fight with the Minister of Justice is that their fears are unfounded, obviously, but secondly, that there is, as a private citizen, I have a right, and I would still, even if it were true that I were related to the Minister of Justice, I would still have the right to approach the courts. And obviously, I'm also not related to the High Court judges. I don't bear the same surname with them. But I would still have the right to bring the case to court, whether I were related to the minister or not. I think that assertion is a nonsense. And I think that they should take their fight to the right political space.
Wonderful. We go for a quick break and return with Friedel Dausab.
Connection. It's in the human touch, the feeling of belonging. It inspires us and empowers us, creates clarity from complexity. It starts new conversations, unlocks the power of advice, and makes an impact on your life. At Alex Forbes, we pioneer insight to provide you with advice that connects your decisions of today to your impact tomorrow.
The conversation with Friedel Dausab continues. Now, Mr. Dausab, give me a sense of where do you think this discontent comes from? You have people like former Minister Jere Kanjo, coming up with those private members' bills that are seeking to stop same-sex marriages, in fact, to counter the Supreme Court judgment of last year. You have now here a statement by some sort of organization calling itself Stop Homosexuality and Same-Sex Marriages in Namibia, and they are planning a mass demonstration on 12 August, and it's not the first time that such a demonstration is held. I think last year was another one countrywide. It didn't really pick up a lot of numbers. But do you think at all that, do you understand where this is coming from, where there's such a reaction by the public to homosexuality in general and to the judgment on Friday in particular?
Yeah, so thank you. I would not claim to understand completely where this is coming from. In fact, that has been one of the things that we were trying to understand, because it's not a situation that is unique to Namibia. It is a situation that is being replicated in other African jurisdictions. You remember that recently Uganda has enacted a law that imposes death penalty on aggravated homosexuality, which would be men like me who are HIV positive and then have sex with other men. You will also see that these model laws, and I call them model laws because they originate from a specific place in the world and have been replicated all over Africa in African jurisdictions. That these model laws are in Ghana, they're in Nigeria, and they're in Kenya as well. What we know, and what I know rather, after a little bit of investigation, and I think we need to find out a little bit more, because I think it threatens our democracy if we don't find the answers, not just for LGBT people, but for all Namibians. But clearly we know is that the evangelical right, Christian movement, people who hate black people, who think that black people are nothing, who just use African resources and not ensure the development of Africa as a region, because they don't think that we are human. These Christian right evangelicals in the US have lost their fight in their own country vis-a-vis rights of women to self-determine, issues about the freedom for LGBT people and equality in marriage, children and the right to have life skills education in schools. And because they fought this, they are losing this fight in their own territory, in the USA. What they have done over the last several years, or maybe the last decade, is that they have cozied up with Pentecostal churches all over Africa and in Namibia as well. They invite these guys over to the US, give them treatment. But you know what they also do? They give them model laws to come and implement, to come and find a politician that they can cozy up to, especially in countries that in elections, they want to use controversial subjects like homosexuality, that they know there will be an emotional reaction from the electorate. What they do then is to cozy up to our politicians and then ask them to use their place in parliament to enact these laws. These laws are in fact not being enacted for the sake of Africa. they have been enacted for the sake of white evangelical Christians in the USA. And I think it is time that we do have journalists do a proper investigation on the funding as well as the facilities in the model laws that are being all over Africa.
Yeah. And
On the question,
please proceed.
on the question of this misguided group who want to have a mass demonstration on the 12th of August, all I would say is that it is their democratic right to express their emotions about something they feel very strongly about. Understand oneness of theirs is it, who I have intimate relationships with in the privacy of my home. This law is not asking anyone to become homosexual. It is not asking anyone to have an homosexual act. What it merely did was to take away the stigmatization that me and other men like me and trans women have faced since independence and demanded for over 30 years that the government repeal this law.
Yeah. You spoke something very, very interesting there, Mr. Dausab, when you said, if you enjoy intimacy in the privacy of your home, you do not see how that affects anyone else, which is a good point. But I just want to read for you a message on one of the WhatsApp groups that I'm on. This person says, I don't think people care with people indulging, paraphrased, because it's not a very polite message. I don't think people care about people of same sex essentially having sex in their own privacy or private environment. Then he goes on to say that by the moment that they want us to witness their acts in public, it could influence our kids to accept their way of life, and this infringes on our right to peacefully coexist. I did a lot of paraphrasing here, but essentially what the person is saying is that of course, sex is a private thing, but I suppose there are other acts of intimacy which are not necessarily sex that you do publicly, like heterosexuals might be holding hands in public, kissing in public, and children are looking at that, and apparently you are influencing them.
Well, I mean, I'm laughing because the notion. I think that anyone who heard the message obviously thinks that someone who reasons like that is a little bit crazy. But first of all, to answer on some of the issues that may arise from that statement. Public sex is proscribed and prohibited for all Namibians. Whether a married couple who's heterosexual or a gay couple who obviously cannot still get married in Namibia have sex in public, they would be infringing on other laws, on our statute books. This verdict does not deal in any case with public sex. In fact, it deals with two consenting adults having sex in a private space. Said that, One of the tricks that the evangelical right have used, and that we see more and more being used in Africa, and in the debate in Africa, is that they are going to right. Another emotional thing that they want to use on Africans, because every parent obviously cares for their kids. That is not to say that there are no gay kids. Of course, I was a kid when I was younger, and I was gay, right? And there are many other kids who may be gay or transgender growing up in this environment. What are they saying? What are those people who are claiming that holding hands in public would turn kids gay, saying about kids who are already gay and who are not seeing any positive role models out there in relationships that are public, that they can say, oh, I see that May Maria and Monsieur Josephine have been living together for over 50 years. They've started and raised a family, and they are really good, productive citizens who are doctors or lawyers or teachers, uh, and who actually contribute to our economy. There are many LGBT couples and families out there. Some of them single families where a mother or a father who's gay might be raising children on their own, or where actually same-sex couples are raising kids. I would be interested to see what that person would respond to if the question was turned around and we asked the question, where are the positive role models for LGBT kids who may be growing up in an environment that is littered with homophobia and transphobia? On the question, obviously, because human sexuality, you don't wake up and turn on a switch and decide you're gay or bisexual or transgender one day to the next. This is an enduring identity that people through our lifetime. I would again say that using such emotive language to get to people's feelings and to let them hate their neighbor and fellow citizen is a nonsense. People just turn up to be gay. In fact, if you ask many of us who are gay, we would rather not be because of what we have suffered, the suffering that we've endured in our coming out process until we found confidence to claim who we are.
Absolutely. Mr. Dausab, that is the time that we had. It was really good to speak to you for the first time. I've been looking for you for a long time, but it's good that we eventually were able to do this conversation. Again, congratulations on your court victory, and let's see what will be the impact going forward of that fight.
Thank you, Mr. Toivo, and I hope you understand that I could not speak to you about the court case because the judges were looking at the merits of the case at that time. Thanks again to you and to the audiences for having me on the show.
Wonderful. That is Friedel Dausab. He's a gay rights activist who just won a landmark case in the Windhoek High Court last week that sought to scrap the sodomy law. It was granted in his favor, and yeah, that is his take. Thank you for watching.